Can November actually be a good time to visit Hawaii? Well, if you've ever wondered this, maybe you're worried about if you might get too much rain, it's too crowded, or just the wrong time of year to go. Well, this episode is for you because today you'll discover the truth about visiting Hawaii in November and how to plan your trip so you still get sunshine, savings, and those stress-free Hawaii vibes. Welcome to Hawaii's Best, the podcast helping you plan an unforgettable trip to Hawaii. Here you'll get practical tips on what to know before you travel from my 20 plus years of traveling to Hawaii and over 30 trips. I'm Brian Murphy, and this show exists for one reason, helping you have an incredible Hawaii trip without all the usual stress and mistakes that go along with it. And today, we're talking all about November in Hawaii. And probably on the surface, November doesn't sound like an exciting time to visit Hawaii. It's not summer, it's not the holidays, well, maybe towards the end, but it's just November. But that's exactly why it's great, because we're going to break down the weather island by island, talk about the crowds, really honestly, the lack of crowds, and show you how to save some serious money by traveling during this time of year, during the shoulder season in Hawaii. And I'll share some of my experiences along the way and activities that you can only get during this time of year in Hawaii. Plus, going to give an update about Maui, what to expect if you are visiting on the Valley Isle, and a lot's happening there with the recovery. So if you're visiting, especially West Maui, we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, a quick travel update. If you are traveling right now, the biggest news as it relates to travel is the federal shutdown is still in effect, which started on October 1st. And I know it's probably not the right timing if you're planning a trip right now, but actually, here's kind of what's going on. Your Hawaii vacation right now, it's fine. Flights are running. TSAs are working. So be nice if you go to the airport, because a lot of them, from what I understand, are working without a paycheck right now. I don't know a lot about the actual details of the shutdown, but my job is just to help educate you, because last time there was a shutdown, things started getting pretty long as far as the security lines, especially as we get into the holiday season. So probably the big question is, what should you do? Well, you're going to want to get to the airport earlier than usual. Security lines might be longer depending on when you're traveling and if the federal government is still shut down. And if you're planning to hit any, national parks, just check ahead. Some visitor centers might have reduced hours or activities. Don't panic, just plan accordingly. Things are running pretty much as usual right now during this federal shutdown, and hopefully that doesn't change anytime soon. All right, so now let's go ahead and get into why November is so special in Hawaii. Well, one of the things, I might give you some actual data that I got from the HVCB, which actually I'm a member of, so I'm able to access a lot of this data, and I wanted to bring it to you because it's as accurate and as up-to-date as possible, because we're talking about what November of 2024 looked like. November is actually one of the slowest tourism months in Hawaii. And that's not a bad thing. That's really the whole point of why you might want to consider visiting in November. So, kids are in school. Summer vacations are long over. The big holiday rush hasn't hit yet, at least not, Thanksgiving towards the end of the month. What happens? You get Hawaii without a lot of the big crowds. And in November of 2024, Hawaii saw 770,940 visitors. That's 75% of what pre-pandemic November looked like. So translation and all that, it's busy enough that everything is open and running smoothly, but it's not so packed that you're having to fight for space like maybe you would on the beach in Waikiki during July. Now, as I kind of already alluded to, there's one exception, and that's Thanksgiving week. It gets busy. If you want a quieter experience, definitely would recommend the first 3 weeks prior to Thanksgiving week is going to be your best bet. Basically, anything like mid-October all the way through that third week of November, that's really one of our favorite times to visit. But we're in a season now that we're having to visit at quote, normal times because of the way our school schedule works for our girls. So we're planning a trip actually coming this January around the first of the year. And that's kind of been one of our times that we've been visiting pretty regularly. And then Allie and I, my wife, will probably get away at least one time per year. We try to just us get over to Hawaii. Let's talk about pricing in Hawaii. As I mentioned, November is shoulder season in Hawaii. And basically what that means that, you got lower prices across the board. So hotel rates are some of the lowest of the year. You'll find package deals. You might get stay 4 nights, get the 5th night free offers across some of the hotels. You'll probably get a little bit more opportunity with resort credits that get thrown in. Stuff that usually doesn't exist in July. You'll find some of these opportunities in November. Flights can be cheaper too. Again, it's those first 3 weeks of November. You're going to find a bit cheaper flights. Airlines run fall sales. I don't know if you subscribe to Hawaiian Airlines, but I constantly get stuff around this time of year about cheaper flights to Hawaii. So with fewer people traveling, prices drop. But the catch, again, is that Thanksgiving week, those flights spike. You see it all over the news that Thanksgiving week, airports are crowded and it's crazy. And you're going to find that flying to Hawaii as well. But my advice is if you can, visit from anytime between November 1st and the 20th, and you're bound to save definitely some money during that time. Weather in Hawaii during November it's still warm. Daytime highs are, from the low to mid 80s. That's Fahrenheit. And evenings drop depending on where you're at, which island you're on, which side of the island you're on. It drops anywhere between the 60s and 70 degree Fahrenheit. And the ocean is still perfectly swimmable, stays around 75 to 80 degrees. And during November, it is the start of rainy season, which sounds worse than it is, honestly. You'll get brief showers, usually at night, or quick afternoon sprinkles that pass in a few minutes, but it's typically not rain all day. And one of the best parts is hurricane season officially ends in November. So by mid-month of November, you have a lower risk of tropical storms, basically almost zero. So the one thing to watch out for, though, is winter swells do start up hitting the North Shore. So you got big waves on the beaches like Pipeline and Sunset Beach. They're incredible to watch. But if you have snorkeled on the North Shore during the summertime, please do not get in the water during the wintertime on the North Shore, especially, Oahu, any of the north-facing beaches in Hawaii. You're not going to want to do that. Waikiki, South Shore, relatively still pretty calm, but definitely cool to take a trip up to the North Shore, especially if you're on Oahu. You're going to get some professional surfers out there catching some of the first winter swells happening. Now, I mentioned a little bit about it depends on what island you're staying on, what side of the island you're staying on. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into weather because a lot of people, at least when I look at my analytics on the website, a lot of people are searching about weather. So I do want to dive into that. We'll start with Oahu because we're just talking about Oahu. So Waikiki and the leeward side stay typically sunny and dry. So that's like South Shore and all the way out to Waianae. You got Ko'olina out there as well. The Haleiwa Pro Surf Competition kicks off mid-November. So if you're into surfing, you just want to watch the pros, this is your time to head up to the North Shore on Oahu. But again, don't get in the water. Listen to the lifeguards. There's plenty of videos out there of swells that come up and take people by surprise, even on shore. So let's go over to Maui. Maui's a bit different. This is really the driest island during the wintertime, Maui is. So West and South Maui are sunny and warm. So if rain is a concern, Maui is usually your safest bet. What's really cool about Maui during this season, what we got to experience when Allie and I were there was this is when you start spotting the first humpback whales as they make their migration from Alaska. So by late November, around Thanksgiving, hopefully maybe a little bit earlier, you might spot your first whale, and Maui sees about 75% of all of Hawaii's humpbacks. But one warning, though, if you are doing Haleakala sunrise, it's cold up there, so bring warm layers, make reservations. Again, with the federal shutdown, you want to make sure that you check the national parks website about any of that. They're really good at putting up-to-date alerts on their website and on their social media. Now, the Garden Isle, Kauai, lives up to its name. It's lush, it's green. The north and east sides do get more rain than the South Shore. The South Shore, you got Poipu, which is drier. The Nepali coast sees some big swells up there. So head south for calmer snorkeling. Just bring a light rain jacket. So the Big Island of Hawaii is kind of a split personality. Really, that's the Big Island year round, but in November, especially, Kona side is hot and dry, and it's actually the driest time of year during this time in Kona. The Hilo side, the east side, the side is wetter, and upcountry gets a lot cooler, so pack layers. Ocean conditions on the west side, they're excellent for snorkeling and diving. If you are doing Hawaii Volcanoes National Park or Mauna Kea, definitely want to make sure that you are packing layers and being aware of weather and all that good stuff. And kind of back to Maui County real quick, Molokai and Lanai. Want to talk about those because some people do visit those islands. Molokai's west side is sunny and dry, and Lanai is dry year round with mild weather. Doesn't really matter what time of year it is, but both are quiet and perfect if you want to escape the crowds. So now I want to talk a little bit about some events that you can experience in Hawaii during November that you typically can't experience any time of year. One of those is in Kona on the Big Island. It's the Kona Coffee Cultural Festival, and it runs for 10 days in early November. You can experience farm tours, coffee tasting, barista competitions, parades, cultural performances. It's Hawaii's oldest food festival and a great way to experience local culture and just to get out and see what life is like for those who live in Hawaii. Again, on the island of Oahu, you got the Triple Crown of Surfing. It's a world-class surfing contest on Oahu's North Shore. If you're not wanting to watch surfing, this is kind of something that we didn't check and learn from our mistake. We wanted to go eat at the beach house, and it was in December, and we were heading up to the North Shore, just going to the beach house. And once we hit that traffic, I was like, oh, okay. We knew that something was going on. And sure enough, there was a surf contest going on. So if you're not wanting to get stuck in surf contest traffic, just check that out before you head up and you'll be good to go. Sunset Beach also has events. So you get some of the best surfers in the world competing for massive waves. It's free. You just drive up to the North Shore, be patient, and you'll find a place to park. And just watch from the beach and have a good time. Get a food truck or whatever. Go see the guys over at Sunrise Shack. Huge shout out to those guys. They were the very first guests on this podcast back, 6 or 7 years ago. Pretty cool to see what they've built since then. So heading over to Maui, you got the Hula o na Keiki event, which is a children's hula competition on Maui. And then on Kauai, you have the Hawaiian Slack Key Guitar Festival. That is just a beautiful event. So both of those are some good events to get some cultural experiences. If you do happen to be traveling and visiting Hawaii during Thanksgiving, you do get a treat. There are some Thanksgiving events. Most resorts do host a special luau turkey alongside of Kalua pig and poke. You just want to check your resort, your hotel, wherever you're going, see how they're celebrating, because there's typically Thanksgiving events. Same thing for Christmas. There's usually celebrations and Christmas events. So even though that time of year is super crowded to visit, been there, I've done that, but it was still very special. All right, a quick update about Maui's recovery. As I'm sure you're well aware, in August of 2023, the devastating wildfire swept through Lahaina, and the loss of life was tragic. Loss of history, property, the destruction was massive. The tensions were real, and the community is still healing over on West Maui, or all of Maui, all of Hawaii, really. But West Maui has opened to tourism, and even parts of Lahaina have opened to tourism. I've mentioned this on a few other episodes and have talked to some locals as well about what is open. What's really encouraging is that Maui was seeing a downward trend of visitors and visitors spending, but that has since bounced back up and visitor spending is back up. More resorts and businesses have opened. And again, I want to give a shout out to Old Lahaina Luau, which has reopened. So if you are staying on Maui, maybe in the Kaanapali area, and you want a great luau, definitely would highly recommend Old Lahaina Luau. Whenever I talk to someone from Maui, the biggest thing is to just, if you visit West Maui, just do so with sensitivity and respect. There still are some parts of Lahaina closed off. It's obvious what is closed off. You're not just going to walk in, oh, I didn't know that was closed. It's obvious what is marked and what is and isn't open. So I think that pretty much wraps up a good snapshot of what November in Hawaii is like. You got fewer crowds, lower prices, still great weather. The key is timing. So visiting the first 3 weeks of November is going to be, your quietest experience. And if you're visiting Maui, especially West Maui, just travel with Aloha like you would anywhere, but just extra heightened. And if this episode has been helpful for you, I would just ask you to hit follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening. And until next time, as always, live with Aloha. Mahalo for listening to this episode of Hawaii's Best. To stay up to date on future episodes, hit follow on your podcast app. Hawaii's Best is a production of Shorebreak Media Group with editing by Easy Podcast Solutions and music courtesy of our friends Stick Figure.